Hi, Tanisha.
Hey, what's going on, Kelly? Is it Kaylee? Did I butcher that?
It's Kaylee.
Kaylee? See, oh, I knew the vowel. Kaylee. Got it. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm actually really excited for this. I've never been in one of these, so
Oh,
I'm
cool.
actually just gonna I'm actually just gonna watch. I saw the prereq and it was like you said it's best to have your own um lab set up, but I don't have that yet. So I was like, I just want to watch this time around.
Cool. You can watch, and then we're gonna probably have another new lab class, like maybe let's call it beginning of February, like second or third week. So you can, but the instructions are in like the home lab setup. So channel and Slack. So you can, if you have a computer, that will great. Get started and just let me know if you have any issues.
Okay, sounds good. Thank
But
you.
yeah, please ask me questions if you have them. Hello, Kia and Lawanda. Hopefully I got those right.
Are y'all able to hear me all right today?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so you guys want to go to the blackgirlshack.org/home lab setup. The easiest way to do that is just to blackgirlshack.org, scroll to the bottom, and then say go to home setup. And then, wait, hold on, it didn't quite. Go to home lab setup. Okay, and then the last document here is what we're going to be using in case you get behind. Emma, so my dear, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Thank you.
All right, so home lab setup, which is at the bottom, just say go to home lab setup, and the last document is what we're going to be doing today.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and then have to backtrack a little if some folks come in here late. But I'm not trying to perpetuate these stereotypes. So right now, your Kali VM should be up and networked. You need to note what the P address is. So what I would do is put in a notepad perhaps, your Kali machine IP address. So mine is 7. And then your broken web app machine. So mine is 17. And then Windows, 27. So I would just set up a notebook, a notepad with that information in there so you can come back to later on. So once you have all 3 of those up and running, if you could raise your hands and just let me know that you are ready to read. All right, so for folks who just hopped in, if you go to blackgirlshack.org and you scroll all the way to the bottom and say pages, go to home lab setup, your flash document, new lab, who this walkthrough is what we're going to be going through today. So in case you get behind or you're not sure what I said or what I typed, you'll see in the screenshot and in the directions included in the document. All right, so what I am waiting for currently is to start seeing some hands up that you guys are ready to make moves. You've gotten your VM up and running, your 3 VMs, I'm sorry. You should have your Kali machine up, which is this one, and you should launch your terminal, which is this dialing here, and then say ifconfig to figure out what your IP address is. This was actually the last step that we did, I believe, in the new year, new lab. So you're going to do the same thing in your broken web app machine. And again, if you click in here and you lose your mouse, on computer it's right control. On your computer, it might be something else. If you're using VMware, it might be Control Alt to get your mouse back. And then the third one is the Windows VM. So you want to make sure that all the firewalls are down. So you can do that by saying something like, actually, you can just ping one of the other machines. So 10.0.2. I think 17 was another one. So as long as you have a connection, you're good to go. All right, so any questions thus far? All right, so if you just hopped in, you can get the document that we're going to be walking through on girlshack.org/homelab setup. So if you scroll to the bottom of any of the pages and say go to home lab setup, it'll take you to this page, and we're using this bottom document, the new lab food disk. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, you can see where we're at in the document. I'll tell you what number we're on just so you can track. But if you have any questions, please feel free to speak up. Or if you're not sure why I'm doing something, or what it's accomplishing, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask. All right, so we've got all 3 of the VMs up and they're running. So you want to make sure that if you use this machine for something else, like some people use their Kali for different things that they have going on in the week. So you want to make sure that in your settings, network, it is not network and not network. Okay, so when you're looking on this front page, you can actually see here on the front page, it'll say network, not network. So you just want to make sure that all 3 of these, network, not network, are in fact on the same NAT network so they can communicate with each other. So the first thing you want to do is type ifconfig just to make sure that you have your IP addresses in your terminal. So ifconfig is what you're going to use for any of the Linux machines. So Kali is a Linux machine, and also Broken Web App is a Linux machine. And for the Windows machine, which has your signature Windows icon, you actually use ipconfig instead of ifconfig. And that'll tell you what your IP address is. Okay, so you want to, just for convenience, write down all 3 of these IP addresses in, you want to write down each one of these IP addresses, so that you can have them for moving on, okay? So we're on number 4, which is make sure that you have your IP address for your Kali machine. So mine is 7, which is what I wrote in my notes. And then you're going to do this thing, which is start your VM, make sure you're connected to the NAT network, and then say ifconfig in a broken web app, and write down what your IP address is. So mine is 17. And then you're going to do the same thing in the Windows VM, which is start the VM, make sure that your NAT network is connected. And then you're going to type in the search bar in the lower left-hand corner. So down here, you just want to type in CMD, or you can type in command prompt. Either one of those will get you the command prompt, and you just want to say open. Okay, so once you have it open, you're going to want to type in ipconfig, not ifconfig, and get the IP addresses. So once you've got all 3 of those IP addresses, then we're good to start going. So as far as your network is concerned, we have 3 machines on this network. So it's going to form like a little, maybe a ring. And Kali is your ACK machine. So we're using Kali to look at the vulnerabilities on the other machines. And then your victim machines are the Windows machine and the Broken Web App. So Broken Web App is an intentionally vulnerable virtual machine that's specifically set up, so that it's easier to kind of get in because it's got its own vulnerabilities. Okay, so we like that because you want to be able to look at systems and see what the vulnerabilities are. And Broken Web App just makes it a lot easier because it has a lot of vulnerabilities. Okay, so that's just a little bit of background. So does anybody have questions about any of that? I'm just assuming that you are like fresh out the gate. So there are some people who may not know as much as you. So if this is all knowledge that you have, then let me know. So does anybody have any questions? No? All right, I'm going to keep moving until someone tells me otherwise. All right, so if you have not done so already, you should have at the end of the new year, new lab, ping all three of the machines. So in my case, I'm going to ping in my trusty notepad, which I have down here. I have 7, 17, and 27. Okay, so I'm going to ping 10.0.2.7. And as long as you get back numbers and times, it says to send to receive, something like that, then you're good to go. If it says like error, not transmitted, or unable, if it says anything else other than some numbers here, then that means that you don't have connectivity. And I would check to make sure that you're using that network and that they're all on the same network. So then we're going to ping 10.0.2.17, which is our second machine. So we've got good connectivity there. And then we're going to ping the last machine, which is 10.0.2.27. And that's good to go. So you'll notice that I purposely set up my 3 VMs so that one was 7, one was 17, one was 27, just so that it would be easier for me to remember. Okay, so we pinged all 3 of those machines from the Windows VM, so we can move on to the Kali. So we're going to say ping 10.0.2.7, and what this does is it makes it that you can make sure that you have connectivity and you can see the other machines in your network. So by pinging all 3 machines, that shows that we can see, communicate with ourselves, which you should be able to, and then communicate with the other machines on the network. Okay, so we're going to ping 10.0.2.17, and then ping 2.0.2.27. So we've got good connectivity Kali machines to all the other machines. And the last one is the Broken Web App. So you'll notice that in the Broken Web App, this is the one that I said might steal your mouse. You'll notice in here that you just have the terminal window, like you can't do anything else in this terminal window. It's just this terminal. So like, don't try to like minimize it and look for the desktop, because there is no desktop in the Broken Web App. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say ping 10.0. Number lock 10.0.2.7. We're good there. Ping 0.0.2.17. We're good there. And then 10.0.2.27. So if you start the come on, you can do it. Okay, this is me being special. 10.0.2.27. There we go. All right. So we've done all 3, and like I said, you either say Control to get your mouse back, or Control Alt, depending on whether you're using VMware or if you're using VirtualBox. So any questions so far? All right, I will keep it moving. All right, so we are currently, after you ping all 3 machines from all the machines, we're running on number 13 in the document. So on number 13, it says in your Kali machine, launch your browser. So in Kali, you can do that one of two ways. A little side panel in my version of Kali on the left-hand side. Some people, it might be on the right-hand side, but either way, there should be a little side panel that disappears and doesn't disappear. So if I were to like make this bigger, you know, if I do something, it might this might go away, but it's always going to be on the left side or the right side. So you can either click here, which this is Firefox in this machine, or you could say application and then select. It may say web browser here, it may say Firefox, depending on what version you want to open up your browser. All right, and so once you have your browser up and running, what we're going to do is we're going to, if you've been doing Hack the Box activities, you want to make sure that you don't have a VPN connected. If you have been doing anything with Burp Suite, you want to make sure you don't have it connected. So in order to do that, we want to say click here, which is the, I think it's just open menu, and then click preferences, and I type in, that's not the one I want. All right, here, preferences, and we're going to say proxy. Just make sure that your proxy is off, because otherwise it will make your life cold. And go back to your website. You will leave this preferences window open. You're going to come back here in a couple minutes anyway. All right, so once you have it in here, what you're going to do is you're going to say, put in the IP address for your Kali machine. So you'll see down here on the left, I'm sorry, for your Broken Web App machine. So for me, my Broken Web App machine is 10.0.2.17. So I'm going to say 10.0.2.17. And it's going to take me to the OWASP Broken Web App web server, okay? So what I'm doing is basically accessing the server that Broken Web App has running on it. And it has in there a whole lot of different things in here. So for example, you have WebGoat, what's it called? Railsgoat, Damn Vulnerable Web App. There's a lot of things in here, but they're all basically the OWASP top 10 vulnerability like practice, okay? So OWASP is the Open Application Security Project, and basically what that is that it's of common web application vulnerabilities. So they usually have like a top 10, and the top 10 usually the same, but it's basically based off of the types of attacks that were happening in that previous year. So it changes from year to year, but the stuff that's on the list for the most part stays the same. Okay, so again, this VM has a lot of vulnerabilities. So what that means to you is that if you have this VM connected to the internet, so when you do your ifconfig, and if you see like a 192 number, you should shut down the VM and just watch, because what that means is that you're actually connected to the internet. This is not going to work for you anyway, because you have to be connected to the same network as these other two machines. But if you see a 192 address, when you say ifconfig instead of a 10 number, then what that says to me is that this is connected to the internet, and someone could take, access this machine based on these vulnerabilities that we're going to show you, okay? Because it's relatively easy to, in Broken Web App, use the information that's in the web server to gain information about the VM, and then use that same information to like log in and take over. So then you can access anything from the network, okay? So, and I've also, heard that you can, I don't know how to do it myself, but you can use that to pivot onto your home network, because it's pretty much on your home network. Oh, I see someone has a question. Let me see and find the chat window. No, these meetings are actually posted on YouTube. So on the Black Girls Hack website, so it'll be back on there maybe in about 24 hours for you to be able to see. All right, any other questions? Oh, and actually the person who asked ended up leaving. All right, cool. So you have the broken web app. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on WebGoat because that's what we're using. So you're going to click on that. Oh, no, don't let me in. All right, so when you click on it, it's going to actually ask you for username and password. Okay, so mine's letting me in. Oh, let me log out. That's what I'll do. All right. What's the point of logging out if you're not gonna? All right, so when you try to log in, it's going to ask you for username and password. So I've actually given you the username and password. It's in step number 16. The username is WebGoat, password is WebGoat. So they give you in the login page for Broken Web App, if you open up this green arrow here, it tells you that there are 4 passwords. There's a guest password, a user password, a basic password, and a WebGoat, which is your admin credentials. Let's just click on OWASP WebGoat, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So if you click on the introduction, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to click start on WebGoat. And when we do that, you'll see that there are a whole lot of lessons in here. So each one of these links in this app represent a set of lessons on different OWASP web application vulnerabilities. So why do you care about this, right? If you can get good at some of these vulnerabilities, this is the basis for basically web application security testing. So for example, when you hear about like bug bounties, a lot of times there are people who, become really good at doing these types of web application, attacks. And then you can take them to websites who are in the bug bounty and use those skills to be able to, earn money if you find them. Like if you find like a secret login page, or if it has default credentials, or any of those things, you can use that to make some money as a bug bounty. And there are people who just do bug bounty, and that's 100% of their job. I'm sorry, like that's just what they do. They get paid just to do bug bounties. And you can do that in your own time. You don't have to work for anyone else. So if you can get good at web application testing, this could be a very good career in cybersecurity that you can get involved with. Okay. So we started Goat. So they've actually got a lesson plan. You can show cookies. There are also write-ups that are available online for you to do these. So if you get stuck. So I do want to say that this was, when put together, they were on Tomcat, very first version of Tomcat. So it was meant to have you work with those. So like, for example, you'll see in some of the exercises that we're going to do, it refers back to Tomcat, when in reality on my machine, I think I'm on Tomcat version 6, so you're going to have to make adjustments as far as the URLs that you're looking for. But the basics of what it is that you're trying to do is going to be pretty much the same. So I've made note of anywhere that I saw an exercise that we're doing that it's going to match up. But I've told you what it is that you need to do in order to get around that. And so we'll talk about that later on. Okay. So you can basically take the time to learn all about WebGoat in the introduction. But I want to show you how to start doing lessons, because we have our lab set up now, and the whole purpose of this is to try to figure out the things to do in your home lab to get exercises. So you don't have to go and pay any money to do these. There are websites that are specifically set up to teach you how to do web vulnerability testing. But WebGoat, Damn Vulnerable Web App are some of the oldest work environments that are for you to try to learn these types of things. So you can do this in your environment for free. Okay. So we're going to click on access control flaws, which is the third link from the top. That's going to be the one exercise we're doing. And then click on using an access control matrix. Okay. So I put myself notes in here. I was doing this in the middle of the night. So listen to the explanation before you go any further, okay? So we're going to click check access. And when we do that, we see that the user Mo, which is a public user, was allowed to access the public share. So the purpose of this activity is to get a user who shouldn't have access to something to be able to access it. So in this case, it wants us to specifically have one of these users be able to connect to the account manager, which is an admin group. Okay? So if we can get one of these users to connect to the admin group, and actually let me restart this lesson so that you can see. So when you start off, there's no check marks, there's no nothing in here. It's just a link. So after you, I don't want to say beat the level, but after you successfully exploit the type of vulnerability, it'll put a check mark there that says that you've actually done. And then, you know, you can move on to the next activity. So as I said, some of these are pretty old, so you may not be able to get a check mark, even though you may have successfully completed it. So for some of them, if you click out and go to somewhere else and come back, then it might show your check then, or maybe that you just didn't do it right. So those are just some things, because this is pretty old, it's not like supported. So you'd have to, like, you know, try to figure out what it is that it's trying to ask you. All right, so Mo has access to the public share, which is cool, right? But we need to be able to see difference between what's sent back to the server when we click check access, okay? So to that, we're going to use a program called Burp Suite, okay? So we're going to minimize the web browser for a minute. So when we minimize it, it puts it over here into the sidebar. If you click there, it'll come back up, and click again, put it back down, okay? So we're gonna go to Burp Suite, and Burp Suite is one, it looks like a clown face to me. I don't know what this actually is, but this is orange and gray thing here. We're gonna click on that one. So when you click on Burp Suite, it's gonna ask you a whole bunch of questions, your JRE, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, just click through it. Your temporary directory can't say, you shouldn't see that because I think you're brand new. So then say close and then click next. So, and then start Burp. So when you do that, it's going to start Burp Suite. So what Burp Suite allows you to do is, it is a web application security testing software program. Okay, so what this is going to do is it'll allow you to do some things like, for example, you guys have probably heard like a man-in-the-middle attack. It lets you to see the requests that are being sent back and forth from the web server. So it allows you to intercept the traffic so that you can see, you know, what's included. So you guys have probably heard about, like, for example, cookies or, you know, information that gets tracked on your computer when you go to a website, okay? So this allows you to actually be able to see what's being sent back and forth when you click on something or when you do something in here, okay? So the way that we're going to set this up is we're going to click on the proxy tab. And then when you click on the proxy tab, you want to make sure that your intercept is on, okay? So what intercept is on means is that before it allows your web browser to go through and, you know, click on whatever it is that you've clicked on, it's going to come here and let you take action on it first, okay? So what that's going to do is it'll allow you to access an intruder, it'll allow you to decode something, it'll allow you to compare something or extend. It's going to do a lot of information, but what we're going to specifically do is we're going to look at the information that's being sent so that we can try to change it and get someone access to the admin, you know, which goes against the access control rules. Okay, now that we've got Burp Suite up, I'm going to minimize this for a second. We're going to go back into Firefox and we want to turn the proxy on. So in order for the web browser to start, you know, trapping the web traffic, you have to have the proxy on. So hopefully you still have this window open where we checked earlier. If not, you can click the open menu here, click on preferences. And when you get the final one, you just say proxy and then click on settings, okay? So when you do that, we're gonna click on Neo Proxy Configuration. If this is blank for you, you want to say 127.0.0.1, that's home. So you want to tell it to look on the home IP address, and specifically we're looking at web traffic, so we want it to look on port 8080, okay? So you say okay after you've selected the manual proxy configuration, and you don't need to use this proxy for all or do any of these other things, you can just say okay, okay? So when we do that, we're going to go back to the website and we're going to do the same thing again. So now we're going to click check access, and then it's going to, so in this case, Mo was allowed to act public share. So if we click on Burp Suite, and I hope I did close Burp Suite. Give me one sec. Right, so don't be me, don't close Burp Suite. I have a question. Why would it be port 8080 instead of port 80? Okay, so if you look in your property and then click on options, we're actually telling it the default for Burp Suite is to look on port 8080. And the reason why we do that is because web servers typically run on port 80, which means it might be in use. Okay, so setting up the proxy on port 8080 so that it can listen to web traffic without interfering with the web server. Okay, because you can't have both of them running on port 80. Okay, all right, so click on intercept, and again, just make it smaller. So we're gonna move this over so you guys can see it, but I'm going through the instructions that are in your document, so if you get lost from where I'm at, then just take a look at the document, okay? So what you're going to do is say click access. And when you do that, oh, wait, I'm sorry. So you want to click on running. Intercept is on. Check access. No proxy lists are running. Go to options to enable a listener. All right, I think this is because it has the other proxy, there's another Burp Suite that is up and running. So I'm going to close that one, and I'm going to close that one. No, I just want to close this one. And I want to close this one. Okay, this is the one that we're using, hopefully. So you should be able to check it and say that it's running and intercept. Okay, so intercept is on, and then in options, we're using port 8080. Okay, so we're going to now say check access. And when we do that, you'll see intercept that it comes up with the request that was sent when we click on check access. So what check access does specifically is it sends the username information. In this case, we asked for user Mo to be able to access the public share, and we clicked on check access. Okay, so you'll see that the web browser is kind of like hanging here. And the reason why it's kind of hanging here is it's waiting for us to respond. Okay, so if I click forward, then it'll go through and it'll deliver the message back to the web server. Okay, so this is, you can see this is how you would do like a man in the middle, where, you know, let's say that I want to click check access and this says Mo, but maybe instead of I want to say Larry. So what you sent was Mo, but what I'm going to send back is Larry. So you'll see, hey, Larry, who's a manager, does not have privileges to access the public resource. Okay, so the reason why this works out is because this is, you know, referencing Harry, Larry, Curly, and Mo, which was, I think it was like a comedy trope, like way before most of you were probably born. So you can, when you do that, it sends it back Larry, even though what I clicked on was Mo. Okay, so where you guys should be at is looking at this, right? So the purpose of this exercise is that we want to try to through all the different variations to see. So we click on the intercept tab, minimize Burp Suite, and proxy. We did all of this. Click Burp Suite from the side panel. We have the bracket there. So this is that was number 40. Try the various account combinations to see who has access to the account manager. So when you get to one who is not supposed to have access, what it'll do is it will, we want to actually give them access to the account manager. Okay, so we're going to say check access, and then we're going to forward. All right, so check access, and then it sent Mo to the public share, but we want to actually have him go to the account manager. Okay, so we're going to try the various, so let's try Larry and the account manager and say check access. So now it's saying we're going to check and see if Larry has access to the account manager. So he does. So it says, hey, you've successfully completed this lesson. So what we did was that we got Larry to be the account manager. Okay, so that's the purpose of this exercise, which it seems really silly, but it's basically Three Stooges. Is that what it is, Camp? Thank you. But yeah, but still, probably before your time. All right, so but that's successfully completed this lesson. So you'll see now successfully completed the lesson that you'll see a check mark up here shows to the screen. Okay, so we're going to, I'm going to stop and ask you if you have any questions, and then we're going to move on to the next exercise. So any questions? So we're doing bypass and access control scheme, which is number 42. Okay, so for this one, that bypass a path. Oh, not going to do anything. Turn the intercept off, sorry, and then click on bypass a path-based scheme, and it'll show you this page. Okay. So the purpose of this exercise is that it's telling you where your current directory is. So for example, the current directory on this file is var lib tomcat c. Notice that what the file that we're looking for, or one of the we can try and look for, it just says tomcat. But in reality, we're currently on Tomcat version 6, so we're not going to be able to find this Tomcat folder because there is no Tomcat folder. It's now Tomcat 6 because the version of the file. And if you're not sure what version that you have, you can do is on your Broken Web App machine. So again, this is the one that shows your mouse. You can say locate Tomcat, and what it does, it'll tell you. But basically, you can see all of these files are in Tomcat 6. Okay, so the version, my version is Tomcat 6. Your version might be Tomcat 7. It depends on what version of the Broken Web that you have. You might have Tomcat 5. I don't know. But your answer should be based on whatever Tomcat version that you have. So my Tomcat version is 6, and yours is whatever it is on your. So you should, do locate, and then you can say Control C, or you can just wait till it finishes and let it tell you, where the file is. So in this case, it is in the Tomcat folder. So another change that has happened since this was set up is that it's not in the var folder anymore. Tomcat is now in the var et folder. So we're going to make a small variation for that. You'll see it later on when we get down there. Okay. So that's the purpose of this exercise, which is number 43. All right. So any questions so far about what it is that we're trying to do? Oh, so this is where we're at currently. So we're in var lib tomcat 6 web apps webgoat lesson plans in English. Okay. So when you click on a file, and you can click on any file that you want and say view file, it tells you that the file is already in this directory. Okay. So the error message that's in red tells you that this off by one file, which was the first file that I clicked, you can click on any file in here if you want to. You'll get the same type of error message, or the same type of message. It tells you this file, the one that you're looking for, is in the English folder, which is in plans, which is in webgoat, which is in web apps, which is in Tomcat 6. Okay. You'll see that there are a lot of levels of directory above where it is looking for. So the goal of this task is to find the Tomcat configuring Tomcat use XML file, which is going to be in a, what's it called? In a directory that we don't have access to. Okay, so that's why this is called a path-based access control scheme, because we're basically going access to somewhere that we shouldn't be able to have access to. Okay, so when you give someone a URL, and this is what this is, if you give someone a URL, they should only be able to have access what you tell them to. But when you do something like a directory triple, which will allow you to go up or down in a directory structure to access things that they may not want you to have access to. So the purpose of this task basically is to get access to this Tomcat users XML file, which is in the var etc folder. Okay, so we've got, as you can see, we've got some ways to just to get to the English folder. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is 5 levels up, but then lib not the correct folder either. So that's what we're doing. Okay, so are there any questions about that? No questions? Okay, want to keep moving. All right, so turn off intercept for a second, click the file and see where the directory is. We did that, and we see that the file is in the Tomcat 6 folder. And so on my machine, that's in var, and then it's actually etc. Okay, So depending on what version of broken BWA you have, yours might be different. Okay, so I took a look for what folder it's in now, and the reason why is because I was doing this the way that it should be, based off of it being in specifically the Tomcat file, and that's how I said, okay, well, it's not Tomcat file, it's actually Tomcat 6 now, and it's not in the var folder anymore, it's in etc. So I have some research for that. So you may have to make, as you're doing these type of exercises, you either have to get an up version of Broken Web App, which I'm not sure if they have, maybe they do, maybe someone's updating it, but if not, you can just do them in here. But again, this is free, so you can, make the adjustments, I think. All right, so the instructions say that we want to find the file Tomcat user XML, okay? So again, this just, number 47 just basically says, hey, this is a different version of Tomcat than what you have on your machine. So we're actually looking for the Tomcat 6 folder and not Tomcat. Okay. All right. So the next step. So the file I selected is 7 folders away from the file where the file is located. The way I could see that is I have this off by 1 folder, and it's in the English folder. Okay. So I need to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say 6 levels in order to be able to get to the folder that I'm looking for, which is it's in var etc. Okay, so in order to do that, we're going to turn on Burp Suite. So we're going to enter on. Okay, and then we're going to say click a file, any file will do, and view file. So when it does that, it inspects it again. What we're going to do is we're going to say, all right, I want you to go up 1 level. So we're going to say slash because it's a file structure, and then we're going to say dot dash. So you may recall, or maybe you don't recall, if you're in a Linux terminal. So in here, so say ls, I don't need to do that. That was habit. All right, so if you want to go to the previous level, you say cd dot dash dot dash. And what that does is it takes you to the previous level. So if I say ls now, it'll show me that etc is in here. And again, you have to do the right click in order to get your mouse back. I'm sorry, right control. You'll see etc is in here. So if I wanted to, I can say cd to etc. But to go back up 1 level of where you're at, you're saying dot dot dash. So if you're wondering why we're saying dot dot dash to see what's in the previous level, that's the reason why, because that's the way you do the directory traversal in a Linux machine. Okay, so we're going to say dot dot dash, right? So we're modifying this and we're going to forward it back. So when we do that, it says, hey, this is still denied, but now off by 1 is not an English folder, it's looking in the lessons plan folder. Okay, so we were able to see this lesson plans in English. We were able to go up 1 level based on the fact that we said dot dot dash. Okay, so we've got more levels. Okay. So that 1 level took us to lessons plan, So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, basically 6 or 5 more levels that I think that we need to take a look at. So we'll say off by 1 again and say view file, and it'll put it in here. So now we're going to say, hey, I want you to look levels. So we're going to say slash and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're doing 6 dot dot dashes after your slash. Okay, so /, and hopefully you guys can get this. Let me make it a little bit bigger in case you have old people eyes like me. So it's slash dot dot dash. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slashes in here. Okay, so and then we're going to forward that ahead and see what that does. Okay. So what that does is that puts us in the var folder. So we know that it's not in the var folder, it's actually in the etc folder. So we want to go 1 more, okay? So, but we want to go 1 more in the etc folder. So we're going to say click off by 1 again or whatever file that you selected and say view file. And when you do that, we're going to put in here again the 6, so slash and then dot dot dash dot dot dash dot dot dash. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, and now we want a etc because it's actually in the etc folder. Okay. So when we do that, we're going to say, hey, I want you to look for this folder in the off by one folder. And actually, we're not even looking for the off by one. We're actually looking for this file. So you can copy that, and we're going to change, because the point of this exercise is to get access to a file that you shouldn't have access to. The file that we're doing, we actually have access to. So again, this is Tomcat 6. Okay, so then I'm going to forward that. So does anyone not understand why? So this is the file we're looking for. So the Tomcat 6 configuration Tomcat users, and it tells us that in the exercise. So you want this is the file you want to obtain, but we're looking for it specifically in the etc folder because it used to be in the var folder when this was created, but it's in the etc folder now. Okay, so if we say forward now, what it does is it says, hey, it says access denied, OWASP BWA with var etc. So it actually needs one more level because we need to have this etc folder is actually in this BWA version right here. Okay, so we need to do one more. Okay, so we're going to off by one, say view file, and then we're going to put this back in there. And instead of 6, we want to have 7. Dashes. So we'll select this, put it back in there, and then we're going to say 1 flag and then 7 dashes. So that's 1, 7, and then it's actually in the etc folder instead. Okay, so I'm going to copy this in case I'm still one off, and then I'm going to say forward. So when I say forward, it says, hey, OWASP, broken web, etc, Tomcat configuration. Okay, so it's in the right folder now, but you can see that instead of Tomcat 6, I have Tomcat here. So we're going to do this one more time. So off by one, view file, and I'm going to replace this last line, which I just copied in the interest of time, and I'm going to change this from cat to Tomcat 6, which is the version of Tomcat that we have on the computer. And then I'm going to forward it along. And it says, OWASP, broken web app, etc, Tomcat 6, access denied. Let me see. So let's see, etc, Tomcat 6. Did I do that correctly? So it says ET Tomcat 6. It's in the 7 folder. Let me just make sure. This is one level higher. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. etc Tomcat 6 submit view file. All right. So I think that's what I had in there. But let's make sure maybe I messed up. New file. Now let me take a look at this. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3, 6, 7 plus the ET. All right, so we'll try this one. Forward. OWASP. Tomcat 6, Tomcat uses. Oh, okay. I see what's going on here. So the file is actually .xml, and for whatever reason, I have .xm. Okay, so I'm going to do this again. And this time, I'm going to make sure that it actually says XML. So hopefully when we forward, it'll say, hey, you've got this, hey, congratulations, access to the file was allowed. So then it gave us, it processed this one up. So what this did is it gave us access to a file that we wouldn't normally have access to. Okay, so that's what you're doing. So for each one of these different types of levels, it'll give you instructions for what it is that you're supposed to be doing. And then you have to perform the specific type of attack in Burp Suite in order to be able to, beat the level. Okay. So any questions about what we just did just now? I realize that this may be foreign because you're just seeing this for the first time, but like, do you kind of understand what's going on here? Someone give me a thumbs up or yes or. Okay, thank you, Emma. All right, so congrats to those who this was your first access control BIOS. So WebGoat will actually keep track of your progress. So when you close out your VM and come back in here, so you could work your way through all of these challenges in here. You can see that there are a lot of them, and there are write-ups all over the web. But like I said, you just have to take into consideration that there may be version differences, there may be directory but that's basically how you do like a. In this case, it was the path-based access control attack. Okay, so we're going to turn off the intercept in Burp Suite so that we can do things. And what else are we doing? So let's pull up Wireshark. You can leave the browser open. So we're on number 57. Okay, so Wireshark is actually, if you say applications, favorites, and then go over here, application sniffing, and spoofing, and then click on the right on Wireshark. That'll open it up. I've already got it up and running. So I think I do. I'm going to stop and close this. All right, so when you first come into Wireshark, this is what you're going to see. You're basically going to see welcome to Wireshark, and it's going to say, hey, capture using this filter. We do not need to use any specific filter because there's only on this network the things that we care about. So we're just going to say click the shark fin, okay? So when you click the shark fin, that will allow start capturing traffic. And then we're going to go back over here to the WebGoat and just refresh the page. Oh, and I'm sorry, and that, yeah, there, because we turned off the intercept. Okay, so when we do that, this is Wireshark. So Wireshark is a packet analyzer. So the files that are in a Wireshark are called PCAP files. Okay, so what that is web traffic that allows you to see what's being sent back and forth. Okay, so we were actually making modifications to the packets that were sent and forth from the web server in Burp Suite. But we were able to do that through a proxy because we said, hey, we want to filter all the traffic through Burp Suite before it goes, back to the server. Okay, so in this case, we're not using the proxy. Using the proxy, actually, I don't remember if we cut it off. But in any event, we are not stopping the intercepting traffic. So it's just actually going to go through there. So we can actually see what we did. So if you've never used Burp Suite before, Burp Suite is basically used to be able to take a look at the traffic. Okay, if we open this up, we'll see, for example, there was a packet that was sent that had a source port of 41,108, destination port was to the web server. Okay, so that makes sense because we're doing things within the web server. Okay, so you'll see in here, for example, like the send, ACK, and ACK. So this is actually a three-way handshake. Okay, so when we talk about it has to complete a three-way handshake, this is what you're looking for if you're looking at it on a packet capture. Okay, so the purpose of why we look at packet captures is to find out what was done. Okay, so typically if you're in charge of looking and doing like an incident response, for example, you'll get a packet capture file, and your job is to try to figure out what exactly did the bad guys do. So in this case, we're the bad guys, and we just basically refresh the page. But just for the purposes of being able to show you what this looks like. Okay, so the first thing I do whenever I get into a packet capture file is I'll say file and then export objects and then go look in HTTP. Now, the reason why this is because typically if someone downloaded a file, if someone accessed a website, if someone looked at a picture, if they did certain activities on the web server, that information is going to show up in the object list. Okay, so when you do that, you can actually download, for example, there's a 101 open.gif. You can download this, and this will end up being a picture that's on the page that was sent, during me refreshing. Okay, so you can also see that There was also an attack screen that had a menu and a screen. Okay, so all three things we know this all checks out because that's what we had on the screen. So if we look back at Firefox, this is a page that we were looking at. Okay, so when we do that, that showed us, for example, the different objects. So the different HTTP objects. There are other objects that are available besides HTTP objects. If we're doing something with an SMB server, you'll see SMB objects. If we're doing something with FTP, you may see that. You know, so there are different types of objects, but that's usually what the first thing I look for, because generally if you're doing, for example, a capture the flag, when you come in here, you're looking for something specific. So like, hey, they downloaded the file, it has a secret password. So, you know, that's why this is the first place I look. You know, maybe if you're actually doing network analysis, you know, with Wireshark, this is not the first place that you would, but for my evil purposes, this is the first place I look. Okay. So the next thing that I do is I'll look at, I'll take any TCP type file. So HTTP is over TCP, and so is TCP. Any of these will work. They follow TCP stream. So when you do that, what that shows you is what happened in the terminal or the web browser that they looked at. So in this case, what was sent was the WebGoat attack file. And when you click on something, it highlights the specific packet where that traffic was seen. Okay. So the more you click on stuff, like it'll show you what it is that you're looking for. So in this case, all of this stuff is packet 8. Okay. So specifically, this was 10.0.2.17. So if we look on our trusty sheet, this is the broken web app. That means because that's what we were looking at. So it said that we're using Mozilla. That makes sense because Mozilla is Firefox that we're using. So as you can see, you can find out a lot of information about, you know, how they access, what they accessed, etc. Okay. So in this case, you'll see that specifically this is the page that was sent, which is the landing page WebGoat. It was an application. You'll see that there was a session ID, there was basic authentication. These are the different things that you can see in this message. So there's also some information down here that is stored in some kind of encoding, and you can't read that, right? But if you wanted to, you could look at the information, for example, in hex to find out information there, okay? So it just gives you the same information, but in a different way. So you can look at the ASCII, which is the default, or you can look at it in different ways. Like you may look at it in raw, and you may look at it in YAML. So there's different ways that you can actually look at the information. Okay, so that's the second thing I do. So like if it was a telnet session, which is completely in the clear, you might see a username, you might see a password, you can see whatever it is they typed in the terminal. If they were like in a window or something, you can see all that information. Okay, so the next thing I would do, so number one was look at the objects. Number two was for the TCP streams. The third thing I'm going to do is look in the statistics and look at the conversations with the endpoint. Okay, when we do that, that tells you, you know, an overview of information of the conversations that were had in the traffic. Okay, so in this case, we have three machines that are displayed. We have a couple of packets that are sent from 10.0.2.3 to 10.7. I'm not sure what that is. And then we have the 10.0.2.7 to 17, which is our Kali machine to our broken web app. And then we have something from our Windows machine. So there was probably like an art packet or something that was sent out broadcast that they responded to. But what it was looking for, basically most of the conversation is between 2.7 and 0.2.17, which is our Kali machine and our broken web app machine, which makes sense because that's what we did. Okay. So this is what happens when you click on IP version 4. So we know that there were three packets that were sent over, three conversations that were sent for IP version 4. So they were also sent over Ethernet, so you can find out the MAC addresses here, how many packets were sent in between the bytes, just overview of information that between those files. But then you see that no traffic was sent over IP version 6, which makes sense. And then it was all TCP. So this specifically tells you that information was sent from port 41108 on the Kali machine to port 80, which makes sense because we were accessing the web server on our broken web app machine. Okay, so you'll see that it sent, a certain number of packets. Either packets had certain bytes associated with it. It tells you whether the traffic was sent from A to B. So you can get information about who said what or who did what in the packet. Okay, so this is just basically like packet analysis. So in here, you could take a look at each one of the packets. So you'll see, example, if you see a HTTP post, it may show you in the bottom in the HTTP section, specifically that it was off by one file. So if you remember, that was the file that I actually sent. Okay, and then I submitted the view file. So you can see if I was the bad guy, that you can see exactly what it is that I clicked, what it is that I did. Okay, so they are actually on Wireshark.org. Which I not access because these are not outward facing. There are packet capture files that are on there. If you look on Black Girls Hack website and you go to the Friday Night Labs, I think it is, there are also a couple of packet capture files that are on here that you guys can use. I don't know what that is. Ask me later. But there are a couple of packet capture files that are on there that you guys can use to do some analysis. So, some of them show you telnet traffic, some of them show you HTTP traffic, some of them show you different types of traffic. I just got caught thinking for a second whether or not I had any of those packet capture files on this computer, on this version of Kali, and I do not. All right, so but anyway, you can get different packet capture files from the Wireshark.org or from Black Girls Hack. I wouldn't suggest that you get them from some random place out in the web because, if someone tried, for example, access a exploit, like they click on an executable file and you see where they clicked on that, you can actually download that executable file and then be affected by that on your VM. Okay, so I say that to say that when you say file export objects, you're really exporting the objects. Okay. So there were, for example, what are we clicking on? Oh, there you go. So you'll see those are packets. So it sent out a message saying, hey, who has 10.2.3? So that's why 2.3 is referenced in there. And then you'll see the connections between the Kali machine and then the web server. Okay. But what the point that I was showing you was export objects. Why is it not doing this? All right, but when you can access them, when you get to the file that actually has the objects in it, you can, it'll show it here in HTTP, and you can actually save and download. So you could save those files. So that's why I say, you want to make sure that you're analyzing the packet capture files on your VM and not on your actual computer. So like I've got Wireshark on my actual computer, but like I don't use it much unless I absolutely have to. And I know whatever it is that I'm analyzing is safe. But I would make sure that you're doing anything that you're doing. So if you're getting a packet capture file from off of the internet, that you do it in your VM so that it's safer. So if you do something to screw up your VM, you can just roll back or trash it and get another one. But you're not going to want to trash your computer. So, all right, let's see where we're at. I told you about Wireshark. I told you the first things that I did. We looked at the stream and the conversations. You right click on a conversation. Oh, all right. If we right click and say, if we say analyze, statistics, conversations, right? And we specifically care about the traffic between 7 and 17, right? So if you right click on this and say apply as a filter selected and then say A and B, it only show you traffic that have between, you can close this, between those two IP addresses, okay? So like when you get ready to do some of the other certifications, the higher level certifications, like the Certified Ethical Hacker, they'll specifically ask you about like how you have to put in the filters in Wireshark. So you'll see that this says IP.address equal 10.0.2.7 and then the 17. So this is specifically only showing us any conversations that involve these two IP addresses. Okay, we shouldn't see anything else in here except for the things that are involved in these two conversations. So let's see. Why it's not showing me my thing anymore. But as you can also see, like when I started off, I had 292 packets, and now I have 309 packets. So it's still collecting. So you might want to stop collecting traffic, because it'll keep picking up traffic, and you'll cut like a week from now, like, why is this still picking up traffic? So you want to stop that. All right, so we see the filter, which is number 70. And those are the filters. I talked about that. Oh, okay. So now we're going to stop the traffic, collecting the PCAP files. Then we're going to go back to the terminal. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the terminal, and you can say clear if you have stuff in there, so you can start with a fresh screen. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to say Nmap. We're going to do a scan of all the computers on their network so that you can see what this looks like. So this is going to be Nmap.a. And so I have 3 machines on my network, and you guys should too. So see 7, 17, and 27. So I'm just going to list all those out, right? So 10.0.2.7 space 10.0.2.17 and 10.0.2.27. Okay. So, what this is saying is I want you to do a scan. So the -A is actually give me everything. Give me the operating system guest says, give me, what vulnerabilities are on there, give me any information that you might see, give me what system versions, give me a trace route. It says basically give me, all of the information about these machines that are on this network, okay? So we're going to press enter, and this is actually going to take a few minutes to run. So I'm going to tell you about some things that BuildHack has got going on. So tomorrow we're having Friday Night Labs. We're continuing the Bandit series. So I think we're on level 23 through 34. So we're going to try to finish up. So that's an introductory intro to Linux. So this is basically Linux. So it is an introduction that we're going to take a look at. Shows you different commands to be able to do things. So there'll be like some directory traversals, there'll be some look for things. So all of the things that you'll need in your future careers as, ethical hackers or sub people, blue teamers, whatever you decide to do, you're going to need to know Linux. Okay, so we've got that going on. Saturday we have intro to Capture the Flag. I just call it Capture the Flag, but basically we go through the types of exercises that you see on Capture the Flag, so that you can get used to the different type of exercises and the different types of things that they do. So you do a little bit of password cracking and web exploitation and cryptography and maybe some stenography. So you'll see a lot of different things, but it's all introductory. Okay, so that's so a lot of the programs that we do, if this is your first time here, so we're doing it based for people who are pretty new. Okay, so web application exploits can seem kind of like daunting, like you may be like, what the hell just happened here? But as you do it a little bit more often and you start to look, for example, if OWASP taught to read what they are, you'll understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So, and like I said, once you get good at those types of things, then you can, start careers, bug bounty people, or ethical hackers, or whatever it is that you are trying to do, world domination plan. So you can find out about whatever it is that we're doing on Meetup, and then so we have some events that are public, and those are on Meetup, and we have some that are private, and that's only discussed in Slack. So you have to be in there in order to see what it is that we have going on. All right, so your scan just completed. Yay. All right, so if you take a look in here, you'll see information about the 3 machines, okay? So the first machine, which was, I think, the Kali machine, which was ourselves, it's reporting that everything is closed. So that makes sense because Kali's an ARM attack machine, and you don't want it to be vulnerable because Kali's a machine that sometimes can connect to the internet. So as much as possible, you want it to be, secure. Okay, so that's a good thing for us, okay? So we also did a scan of our 17, and our 17 is the broken web. So we expect that to have a lot of things open, a lot of vulnerabilities. So in this case, it's got SSH open, which is port 22. And then it specifically has this is the, sometimes we call it banner grabbing, which is telling me the version of the application that's running on that particular port. So we have the banner information. So this is SSH version 5.3.P1. It gives us the SSH keys for these, the RSA and DSA. We have a web server that's running as an Apache, so which we know because we just accessed the web server in order to access the web goat. It says, hey, it's particularly risky methods, which we know. It's the OWASP broken web app, we know that. And then there's other versions on there, other applications on there, for example, NetBIOS, Samba, SMB. I get excited when I see SMB servers. IMAP, there's SSL, there's a whole bunch of things that are open on here. You'll see that on port 8080, there's the Tomcat. That's why we were able to run the proxy, and the site doesn't have a title. That's fine. And then Jetty on port 8081. So you'll see that there are a lot of different things that are running on the Broken App machine, and that's because it's purposely set up to be vulnerable. And if you start, doing in the exploit database, for example, all of these versions, like if you look at Apache version 2.2.14, this is so low, this version number right here, because it's supposed to be vulnerable. So if you do like a search on the exploit database, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff that you can do to exploit an Apache database, okay? So it specifically tells us that there's NVStat on there, and it's OWASP broken web app. We don't know, couldn't figure out what the username was, but it's a guest user account. User authentication level is user. Challenge response was supported, and message signing is disabled. So all of these are good things for us as ethical hackers as we're trying to get in there. So the third machine that it scanned was 27. So 27 is my Microsoft machine, and luckily it said, hey, this is a Microsoft Windows machine, so it took a good guess. It was right. It tells us like the MAC address. It tells us that it's using VirtualBox. That's actually what I'm using, so that's good to know. It gives you the operating scan, and it says, hey, our best guess is that this is Windows 2012 eval, which is exactly what it is. This is the name of the file for my Windows 10 server. It tells you that it was accessed over VirtualBox and the MAC address. So it gives you a lot of information. It also gives you the trace route information. So, the machine that we started from in Cali is one hop away from 27. So, which was our Windows machine. So that makes sense because, like I said, these are basically in a ring structure. So they're all basically on the same network. And then it tells you, for example, port scan script this amount of time, right? So it told you that it did an operating system and service detection. Please report any incorrect results because it was basically a guess, okay? So that's network scanning. So when you're talking about doing, as a part of the ethical hacking process, you put printing and then you do like the scanning and enumeration. This is the scanning, okay? So these are just some of the things that you can do in your home lab. So we've discussed how to do some scanning of your machines. So we did all machines, but you can scan one machine specifically. You can start trying to do some attacks based on the vulnerabilities on here, run some other Nmap exploits. You can do Wireshark, which will allow you to do packet capture proc. And then we've also looked at the Burp Suite, which allows you to do the web application attacks, like man in the middle or intercepting and changing information and sending different information. So those are all some of the things you can do with your new lab that you just set up. And I think that was all that I had. Tanisha talked about what they should see here. I did that. So if you would like to see more things that you can do in your new lab, that's fine. You have to go to the Slack channel on Ash. And if enough people want to see it, then I'll make it happen. But otherwise, I will leave it at this. We'll just go back to our normally scheduled things. But if not, then whatever. Either way, it's fine with me. Any questions for me, anybody? No? My friends? Thank you, Lucha. I appreciate you responding. Callie, cool. All right, so that's all I have. So I will see you guys in the Slack. You're welcome. And let me know if you have any questions. You can drop any feedback about how we could make things like this more efficient in my DMs if you'd like to. All right, guys, I will cut in the slack.